Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time this last weekend in Birmingham, Alabama at Word of Life Church. The crowds were so hungry, got into end times, got into a little bit about the power of God. It's so cool to see church after church excited about the coming of the Lord. What a blessed season to be living just before He returns. Exciting. You know, the whole purpose of the End of Days Update is to see a finish line, and as we see the finish line, we run faster, not slower. It's not escape theology, it's a hustle theology. And the Lord wanted us to know, remember, He rebuked the crowd for not knowing their hour of the visitation. The only time He ever rebuked the crowd, He rebuked the Pharisees over and over again. So He wanted us to know, He said, man, you need to know the time that you're at. So boy, especially right now with sign after sign after sign, Jesus was super clear about what it would look like. And there's so much that happened this last week that's so long that I'm going to try to abbreviate it to show you things that are flawless about the Ezekiel 38 war and about what will happen just after the rapture of the church. So it's very, very exciting. And remember, we get into all this stuff because He loves you so much. He wants you strengthened. He wants you encouraged. He wants you blessed so you can accelerate in your pace. So let's pick up what's happened around Israel this last week. Probably the biggest thing was you had Iranian Houthis fire more missiles at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia intercepted them, which was amazing how they could do that. But then you had Iran responsible for a blast near the Israeli embassy in India. So you got Iran doing some crazy stuff. Some of the other crazy stuff that Iran's doing, man, it just gets so more and more and more blatant every week. You had Iran come out publicly saying that they're going to annihilate and wipe out Tel Aviv and Haifa. Now, why is that? Because the Mossad came out with another report showing really to make the International Atomic Energy Agency kind of get back on guard. Basically, the International Atomic Energy Agency said, no, Iran's keeping all their promises. That report came out a couple years ago extremely showing that Iran was not doing not one thing to keep what their word as far as the nuclear pact. So it came out again today. So then you had the International Atomic Energy Agency going, hey, we gotta stop Iran from doing all this. And with that, you had Israeli preparedness for a strike on Iran. So you had Iran freaking out. Just one more thing. What's interesting, every single week, I don't really have a chance or a time to get into it, but the nations that are involved in the Ezekiel 38 war are so aligning themselves together, and the nations that are not, like Jordan and Saudi Arabia, are not mentioned that attack Israel, and they're so coming to Israel's aid. With all that happening with Iran, you had the U.S. send another B-52 right over the Persian Gulf, came right over the Samaria part of Israel. It was escorted by Israeli F-15s and Saudi Arabian F-15s and United Arab Emirates F-15s. So you have Arab countries with Israel protecting U.S. bombers to show Iran that we mean business about what's going on over there. So that's really heightening up. What was intriguing about this, they even interviewed Joel Rosenberg that wrote all those novels about what would happen in the Middle East, and him talking about you've got a massive war coming on the northern part of Israel with Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran coming down that way. With that, you had real massive troop preparation on the northern part of Israel, the 71st Brigade, with their tanks that have anti-tank missiles, new technology, all kinds of stuff happening with that. So you see it sped up with that. There's so many things that happened. You had the Pope go to Iraq. He went to Babylon. Jews were not allowed to go to the ceremonies. With that, the Pope talked about unification of religious beliefs. And then he talked about rebuilding Babylon. Now that's pretty crazy because that happens during the tribulation. So you have the Pope pushing that along with Iran, setting up stages with Turkey and Iraq. I mean, so many things happened with that. You had an oil tanker that was stolen in Syria. It wasn't hit by Syria. It wasn't hit by Turkey. It was hit by Russia. So Russia stopped this stolen tanker from getting oil to probably Turkey. So who knows who stole it. So a lot of things are happening there. We don't have time to get into all the natural stuff that's happening, but you had 20,000 earthquakes happen in Iceland in 2 weeks. You had 3 of them, 8.1, 8.4, 7.1, 7.4, and 8.1 on the Richter scale. Explosion of earthquakes. You had more locusts show up again. You had more stuff that's happening in the schools about schools teaching 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and 1st grade about transgender. There's this massive, weird, psychotic push. It's very satanic in the schools to teach children about changing their gender. So many things keep happening for that. I've been intrigued to see that our administration still is yet to call Biden, was yet to call Netanyahu. He did the other day, but it was the first president in 40 years to wait that long. So there's a total setup for what's getting ready to happen. It's pretty amazing. In the world it's very scary, but for the church it's super exciting because you're seeing all the sides take their place that are going to be in the Ezekiel 38 war. Many things are happening around you. You had Greece and Egypt make a pact for the oil that's in the Mediterranean Sea, and these pacts are about what will happen right after the rapture. Pretty amazing. Then you had, this is still crazy, this is amazing. You had Saudi Arabia come out and say, the Palestinians don't have a right to the Temple Mount, it belongs to the Jews. I'm like, for Saudi Arabia, I know England, for Saudi Arabia to say that, that's absolutely amazing. That's kind of stuff that you would never see come out of Arabs' mouths, saying, the Arabs would say, no, Israel has no right to the Temple Mount, and here Saudi Arabia said, the Palestinians don't have a right to the Temple Mount. I know, it's amazing, buddy. It's crazy, isn't it? So exciting times. So we always go to the scriptures. There's many more things keep happening that are just flawlessly showing us the setup for the coming of the Lord. But number one, we go back to the scripture. Israel made a nation. Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees that will not pass away till all is fulfilled. Then you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You have the Temple Mount Institute. You have fish showing up in the Dead Sea. You had foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. That's Lamentations 5:18. You had the ritual baths around the Temple Mount filled up with water. You had the Sea of Galilee filled up with water. So you have all these things happening. You have Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri prophesying in 2005 that Israel would be ruled by two Benjamins. Benjamin Netanyahu and Benjamin Gantz came together this last year to jointly rule. Pretty amazing, blatant how those things are. You have the fertility of the land of Israel. I mean, just astonishing, tangible, physical things to look at to show us that Jesus is about to come back. 172 different species of predatory birds. So you have all this part of nature getting ready for the entrance of the King. So along with nature, you got the signs. You have planets that would be for signals for us. So you had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. You had 4 in a row. When's the last time you had 4 in a row of blood red moons like that? NASA called it a tetrad. The last time you had that was 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation, and 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So amazing. I mean, you have tangible physical things there. And then one more happened. You had the Bethlehem star this last year. You had Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus come together. So it's amazing that the nature's preaching to us that the King's about to come back. You have many more things about planets that show us that Jesus is about to come. So what do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. The closer you get, the more you're engaged. When Colleen and I were engaged to get married, we talked more. We didn't talk less. So we have to be engaged in doing the will of God because the King's about to come. You have to have the thought pattern you're about to see him face to face. And the rapture of the church is going to happen just like Enoch was raptured, Elijah was raptured, Jesus was raptured, the church will be raptured. We're about to hand off to the Jews like Enoch handed off to Noah. Elijah handed off to Elisha. Jesus handed off to the church. The church is about to hand off to the Jews. God's going to raise up 144,000 Jewish evangelists. So you're seeing the setup for Jesus presenting himself to his brethren just like Joseph did at the very end. How blessed are we to watch the orchestration of the grand event, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords coming back to the planet. Wow. Jesus of Nazareth. He died for us. God raised him from the dead, and he's coming back so soon. Wow, we'll see him so soon. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.
One love to overshadow.